Now 4 o'clock, I will call the meeting of the Waxahachie Independent School District Board of Trustees to order. Let the record show we have 5 trustees in attendance. And this meeting has been duly called, and notice of this meeting has been duly posted for time and manner required by law. First item on our agenda will be our budget workshop for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. Mr. Colby.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Board and Dr. Averett. Tonight, or this afternoon, I guess, is our first installment of our budget workshops for the 2025-2026 fiscal year. As you may remember in years past, this is a multi-meeting, multi-workshop approach. And so the first time, we will kind of give you where we're thinking and hear from you what our priorities are or should be for next year. And then the next meeting will likely be in June. It would normally be in May, but with the legislature in session, we'll go ahead and have it in June. We'll give them some time to hopefully approve some items, and that way we'll have greater clarity going into next year. But we'll meet again in June and do another workshop, and that way it's kind of the halfway point. We'll let you we'll show you our work and tell you, you tell us if there's anything you would like for us to change or do different going into it. And then the last one will be in August, and that's the Board, just so that you know what we're adopting with the budget. That's that meeting in August. So that's our 3-part budget workshop series. Today we'll focus a little bit on fund balance, current year developments, legislative updates. We'll go real quick through budget mechanics. We'll review our instructional changes for next year and then discuss our expectations and our priorities for the 25-26 fiscal year. We'll start off with fund balance. Fund balance is always an important topic for us to talk about. You've got a table and a chart showing a fund balance trend. So this is the total general fund balance, whether it is committed, restricted, unassigned, available for use. This is total fund balance in general fund from fiscal years 2018-19 through 23-24. So you saw a nice rebound in 22-23. We were able to make some good progress there in getting our fund balance back to 25% or 3 operating months. We were able to hold steady in 23-24. We did not have much of an increase in fund balance from 22-3 to 23-4, and there's a lovely date typo in the fiscal year ending in that first column. It was not a 2-year fiscal year, but we did increase fund balance about $100,000 from 22-3 to 23-4. So we are sitting again right about that, the 90-day mark. A little bit less than, but right about 90 days, and we're in really good financial health in the general fund with our fund balance.
What is the 90-day mark?
Ooh, that's a really good question. Where's my calculator? Hold, please. Let's see. Right about 30.5 million. So we're just a little bit under it, but again, in really good financial shape. Fund balance, just kind of, we've talked about this in years past, but fund balance is the fund that gives us latitude to be able to go out and do things that we otherwise weren't prepared to do. It gives us the ability to go do mainly capital improvements or one-time expenditures. We don't like using fund balance for personnel matters because fund balance is an exhaustible resource, and personnel, unless you just have a really, really special unicorn, they are not a 1-year engagement. That's a recurring cost, and we don't like to use up our fund balance on a recurring cost. So fund balance generally would be if we needed to go replace all the security cameras at Simpson for some reason. I don't know why, but if we did, we would use our fund balance to do that with, because that would be an otherwise unplanned expense. So. I don't know that I have any more gray hairs to get. I think they start letting loose next. But honestly, I would tell you that if we're going about 25 million or below, because we're a growing district, 25, I'm going to start scratching my hair out. 20, I'm probably really going to be seeking some medication to relieve the stress. So that's as a growing. Now, if we were a more flat district, if we were kind of built out and we were kind of at our peak of enrollment, we really thought we were going to be stable and or declining going forward, that's a different conversation. But as a growing district, I know our needs are going to continue to grow, and they're going to get exponentially bigger as our budget every year grows. So to me, I don't want to dip too far into fund balance at this point because we know that we are still growing. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And Ms. Timmerman, I appreciate your questions. As a reminder, this is a workshop, so feel free to give and take as we go through slides. You don't need to wait till the end, so thank you for setting that example. Current year operations, this is something that we haven't really done with you in the past, so wanted to kind of highlight where we are this year. So this year, for revenue, we anticipated we would have a student enrollment of about 11,300. If you remember back to August, I tell you every year I don't really care what enrollment is because I need students here. We get funded on average daily attendance, not actual enrollment. There is a bill to change that in the legislature. There's been a bill before and it hasn't gained any traction. So as of right now, I'm worried about average daily attendance, not so much enrollment. But I know enrollment has to be a factor of average daily attendance. How many kids do I have? How often do they attend? Gives me average daily attendance. So a backwards in calculation, we estimated student enrollment to be about 11,003. We're about 11,002 at this point, so about 100 students less than what we anticipated. Attendance funding rate, that is my calculation of average daily attendance divided by total student enrollment. Some students we don't get funded full days on. So pre-K students, I get funded a half day for pre-K. They can be here all day, but I only get funded for a half day. So when I look at attendance rate, it's one thing to tell you I have a 94.8% attendance rate, but that doesn't directly correlate into a funding percentage. I have to look at my allocation of students, which ones qualify for full day, which ones qualify for half day funding. So I'm looking at that attendance funding rate to see that we're pretty on line with where we've been in the past. About 93% of my enrollment will directly translate into average daily attendance at the end of the day. So if I get a real bubble in a pre-K class, that number might dip. If I get a real shallow pre-K class, that number may go up a little bit. But overall, our enrollment is staying pretty steady year to year in terms of breakdown by class, by student class, not by any other metric.
Mr. Cotton, isn't that another thing that is looking to maybe be addressed in the state legislature is
Yes, ma'am.
full day
Yes,
pre-K being funded?
There is a bill in the legislature. It's not been identified as a priority item or emergency item, so it's not being considered at this point. But yes, ma'am, this is at least the second legislative session that I'm aware of that a move from average daily attendance to enrollment-based funding has been filed.
No, I didn't ask you that. I asked you about pre-K.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yes,
Pre-K.
yeah.
Yes, there is a bill to move pre-K to full day as well. When Governor Abbott, some years ago, he put out a high-quality pre-K expectation program, and that was to move to full-day pre-K, but the legislature did not put funding behind full-day pre-K.
Okay.
They told us that they would fund pre-K at half-day and that we could use an early education allotment that was really more geared towards math and science, or math and reading at grade levels pre-K through 3. So that was additional funds to give us some more resources to address those needs. That was the suggestion at that point, was to use the early education allotment for the additional expenditures for going to a full-day pre-K program.
Okay, and back to the other, I am hopeful that if we get anything, we'll get the change to enrollment based
Yes,
with
ma'am.
the other 42 states, maybe, but
Yeah, last time I looked, we were one of 5 or one of 6 that only
Yeah.
do average daily attendance.
So-
So I apologize for assuming I knew what your question was going to be on that. I will listen closely next time.
that's okay.
All in, if you look at estimated student enrollment and average or attendance funding rate, that goes into our calculated average daily attendance. We're right behind where we thought we would be at this point, about 100 ADA behind. From a funding perspective, that would yield a little bit less revenue from the state standpoint, but not catastrophically less. Ms. Timmerman, we will not be scratching out our hair and watching it all release from my head with that number. So we're in the ballpark. We're feeling okay. Estimated state revenue for this year in our budget is about $46.7 million. The question mark is because we've had a not so fun cold and flu season between January and February. So we have that same season every year. We always have some days that are rougher than others as it comes to funding. So we'll keep monitoring it through the spring and see exactly where we end up ADA-wise at the end of the year. But right now, we look to be pretty close to on target as it relates to what we thought we would have and where we were at the end of the fall semester.
One other question. So, back to the flu season, can we only apply for one day, or can we apply for more than one day for the flu
It's my
season?
understanding, but if Ms. Mott knows better, I'm gonna let her chime in. My understanding is we can get 1 day for the low attendance day waiver.
Okay,
So we
okay,
had a couple of days, 2 days, I believe, back to back, that we were district-wide in the 80s, 83, 84. Both days would qualify for the attendance funding waiver, but it's my understanding only one of those we can actually submit a waiver on.
okay. The reason I ask is because I was in Austin and someone indicated in one of our discussions with the legislature that we could apply for waivers and use the plural, so I keyed on that. So we
will
need to
definitely
be
make sure
sure.
with Ms. Mendelson that we are fully in compliance and taking advantage of every waiver opportunity that we
Okay.
have. But we'll have to bring those to you for
Okay.
approval before we submit them.
Yeah.
Realistically, at this point, there's no rush on those.
Right.
Because we don't submit that until June with the full year data information. So, yes, ma'am, we will make sure that we're accurate and that we're taking advantage of everything we can.
I just, when she was explaining it to our legislator, she said days. We can apply for waiver days, and I was like, okay, let's do
Anytime you're
it. Let's
expecting
do
a singular
it.
and get a plural, it's always a shock.
Thank you.
So, yes, ma'am. Legislative update, it is legislative session right now. There have been over 3,600 bills filed. This is not the most current. I made this slide about a week and a half ago, so that number is probably higher. At least 720 are related to public education or K through 12 education. 90 are related to property taxes, 75 to school governance, and 62 to school finance. So at this time, we know the legislature is working through vouchers or education savings account. We know that there's been a bill filed in both the House and the Senate that would increase the basic allotment by $220. Just to give you a general idea of what that would mean funding-wise, that's about $2.3 million additional dollars for Waxahachie based off of our current ADA. So it is something. It's not nothing, but it's not exactly an increase that we keep up with inflation since the 2019 legislative session. We know the priorities for the legislature also include property tax compression, so we will keep monitoring where those bills go. Just as a reminder, property tax compression, while it does add additional money to public education, it is not new money for public education. It's merely replacing the local tax dollars from last year with state monies from Austin this year as we compress the tax rate. So we will keep monitoring those and let you know as important things come along. Budget mechanics, revenue and expenditures. This section truly is about leveling and making sure we're all in the same spot as we get ready for revenues and expenditures going forward. So we have three revenue types. We have local, state, and federal. Generally, local and state for Waxahachie ISD are going to make up about 99.5, 99.9% of our budget. The only federal monies that we have in the general fund are SHARS reimbursements. That program has seen a significant number of changes, and changes that I would not tell you are for our benefit. The eligible services and programs keep getting smaller and smaller, and the paperwork and documentation required to claim those expenditures keeps getting more voluminous. So at this point, we are truly exploring whether or not to continue with the SHARS program as a district going forward. So our revenue from that used to be about $2.5 million. Last year, it got significantly reduced to roughly $1 million. This year, we're seeing that drop even further at about $300,000. So over time, we're seeing how this trend is going. If we pull out of SHARS, it doesn't have to be a permanent decision. It could be we'll pull out, wait and see when all the changes get finalized and see what the new landscape is and see if it makes sense for us to participate going forward, which is kind of where we're leaning right now. But that'll be a decision that administration will be making here shortly as we get into the next federal fiscal year. There will be challenges for us if we start the year and then decide we're going to cancel it. So we'll be making a decision before the federal fiscal year starts in October.
Mr. Colden?
Yes, sir.
How much did you say was available in chart? I know you said it went from 2.5 went down? What was
So
the last number?
it's stair step down, so we used to receive about 2.5, then last year, the year before, it was about $1 million, and now it's about 300,000.
Okay.
So we're seeing a significant decrease through the rules that are being set by HHSC at the state level.
All right. Thank you.
Mr. Calder,
ma'am.
I'm sorry, would you explain the tuition from other districts? I didn't think we had many.
We don't get much, but we do have some that if we're providing, say, if we have open seats in CTE, we could always let another district send a student over for a CTE program. Within that, there would be a cost-based or a tuition share that we would ask for some help with the cost in that program. That's generally what you see more in that tuition side.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. If that was too many words and you like it graphically, here is the graph that's showing the same general thing. Local makes up about 50% of our general fund revenue, state about 43%, and then federal, again, around 1%, 0.5%, somewhere in that range. Before the 2019 legislative session, this chart looked a little bit closer to 63% local, about 35 or so state, and then the rest federal. With the changes from House Bill 3 in 2019, you saw us get more to a 50-50, and since 2019, the local has started to creep towards the state side a little bit more. So local taxpayers are providing more than half of our support in the general fund to operate as a school district every year. Local revenue, 99% of our local revenue is made up in property taxes. We will receive an estimate of certified values from the comptroller or from the local appraisal district by April 30th. We will get certified values from the appraisal district by the end of July, the 25th. Commentary on the side, this is what makes the process really hard to ensure accuracy. So we're going to go through budgeting, and we're going off of an estimate that we get in April, and then our next update is going to be in July, at the end of July. By the time we get that, we've already prepared your budget book for you. We've already started our publication of budget estimates that go into the newspaper. So at that point, it's really more of a double check. Hey, are we close? Are we in the ballpark on property values? Because that's going to tell us what our property taxes are going to be. We really don't like scrambling at the last minute on that. So we try to be conservative, and we hope that Kathy's numbers come in a little bit higher than we anticipated, because then that makes everything work for us going forward. New with TEA, we have to submit to TEA our certified appraisal data, and TEA tells us, confirms what our maximum tax rate data is to be in compliance with state law, and that has to happen before we can publish and post our rates, which has to happen before we can hold that meeting to adopt the tax rates in the budget for the next year. And then we assume a 99% annual collection rate on the levied taxes. I'll show you here in just a minute why that's important. Other local revenue items, generally, we use the Sally method, the same as last year, unless we have a reason to change it. So when interest rates, when we know those rates were near zero right after 2010 and then the Great Recession, we didn't budget a whole lot for investment earnings. Now that those rates are north of 4.5%, 5.5%, we do budget. We have modified our approach, and we budget more for investment earnings. So it's that kind of stuff. If we had a state title run in any athletic, we would probably budget some more revenue the next year for athletics, but then the following year probably dial it back to more of our constant where we are. So we don't generally mess with many of those local revenue items, mainly because we don't want to be super wrong. We don't want to make personnel decisions off assuming that athletics revenue is going to magically increase 20% in a year, because when it doesn't, now we've hired people, and that's when we start using fund balance for a recurring cost instead of fund balance for a one-time cost. It's not to pick on athletics, it's just he's here, so it's fun to pick on him while he's here. Other local revenue items, we are more likely to reduce local revenue items without compelling evidence than we are to increase them. Again, that's a conservative approach to make sure we don't get out in front of our skis as we go forward. Told you on property taxes, we assume a 99% annual collection rate. Show you our collection rate over the last couple of years. While we may assume a 99% collection rate, what we have actually experienced over the last 2 years is a 97 and a 96.5% property tax collection rate. So what this is telling you is that in the year of levy, in the current year, my current year collections in the year of levy are about 97% of my levy, or 96.5% of my levy over the last 2 years. A trend we're going to continue to watch I don't really have a good explanation for it, but we will continue to watch that, which may change our calculation of expected property tax revenue going forward. So if this trend continues, we will have to scale back from 99%. You will see some years we were close to 99.75% of the current year levy, but that was 7 years ago and 3 years ago. So we'll continue watching this trend, but we are seeing a little bit of a downward trend right now, and hoping it's just a blip on the radar.
Mr. Calden?
Yes, ma'am.
How many $1 million is that? Just out of, do you know?
Our property tax revenue is about 70 million, so every 1% is going to be about 700,000. So 3%, 700,000, 2.1 million.
Okay.
If you assumed a perfect collection of 100%,
Right.
about 1.5 million if you go off of our historic average at 99%.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Whew, I'm glad you asked a question I could do mental math on, because I didn't want to have to bust out the calculator again. It's kind of embarrassing for the CFO to have to bust out the calculator. Yo, you're good. Tax rate history, that was filler for I needed to catch my breath. Tax rate history, just kind of wanted to show the board and the public what our tax rate has done since 2017-18. So you remember 2017, 2018, 2019, those years. 2019 is when we hit the legislative session with House Bill 3 and the tax rate compression. So since the 2019 legislative session, you've seen that tax rate decrease to about 75 cents for the M&O side of things. That's a better part of a, let's see, that's 25, 35. You're looking at about a 42-cent decrease in that M&O tax rate since the 2018-2019 school year. On the other side, you're seeing the INS rate generally remains unchanged unless we have a new bond issue or a new debt issue. In 23-24, that was the result of the $575 million of bonds from the 2023 bond proposition. You see that has held steady at 41.29. We're meeting our parameters on that in terms of value growth and interest rate environment for those bonds to be issued in. So right now we have no expectations for that INS rate to increase. It's holding steady at 41.29, so our model is pretty solid at that point. All right, full disclosure, this is in Google, and I still haven't figured out how to change billions to properly be spelled correctly, so we're rolling with it. Shown in misspelled billions is our freeze-adjusted taxable values. You are seeing an increase in our freeze-adjusted taxable values, but I would like to point to from 2022 to 2024, that line has flattened out as compared to the increases between 2020 and 2022. There was a marked increase in 2021 that saw a significant rise in our property values. About the time you started seeing on your personal statements, you started seeing land values really shoot up, and then you also saw some adjustments in the improvements values. Since then, improvements have kind of slowed a little bit, but land is still carrying the bellwether on a lot of these property value increases. So this does take into account the change in taxable values. So this is with the increase of the homestead exemption. So from 40 to 100,000, that's going to be part of the reason you're seeing a flattening of that curve is more home property became non-taxable when we increased the $40,000 homestead exemption to 100,000. But it does capture newly built properties, so any new value that's added to the roll would show up on this. It shows you, though, that we still have a lot of our property is residential homestead, and so that increase in the homestead exemption will flatten out that curve for us. The more traditional way to stall. Enrollment trend. Board, this should come as no surprise to you as we do a quarterly update on demographics, and this is keeping in line with kind of where we were. Back in 2015-16, we had a little over 8,100 students, and in 24-25, just under 11,200 students. That is a pretty good clip of growth in there for a district of our size. We expect that growth to continue. We do not expect it to continue at the rate that we originally were anticipating. So if you back up the demographic reports to 22, 23, somewhere at 21 in that range, you'd be looking at annual growth of 4.5% to almost 6.5% every year for the next decade. We have seen that slow down to 1.5%, 1.75% to 2.5% growth. We do expect growth to continue, as we talked about in our demographics report. but we expect it to be 3%, about 3% topping out, maybe 3.5% over the next 10 years instead of the super hyper prospered ISD type growth at 6.5% annual growth. But we're still in a growing position, so we do anticipate growth. I do anticipate that our newly built campuses will add somewhat to the growth estimate. As you put the new campuses on ground, I think we will start seeing some students come in, especially in that immediate area around them because of the development that the new campuses will drive. But we are still in a growth position. And so, Ms. Timmerman, to your question at the very beginning about fund balance, this is the thing that keeps me up a little bit. If we ever start getting that fund balance too low for comfort, this is the thing, is knowing that we're growing and that budget's going to grow and trying to make sure that we have resources for students and teachers as they need it going forward. Way too early. So this is generally what we talk about as we're going through this, the way too early projections. So just to remind you of kind of where we were for last year. Originally, the way too early is we thought we'd have about 10,600 kids and ADA. If you remember about 5 slides ago, we were about 10,400 kids is where we ultimately settled. So there will be some play as we go through the remainder of budget season. We will continue to refine those numbers. We'll get more demographic estimates from the demographer. We're going to try to play it conservative because, again, we don't want to get out in front of it and count on revenue that we never actually receive. Sanity check on that 10,668, we assumed we would have an enrollment of 11.5 at the time. Again, when we built the budget, we had dialed that back to about 11.3, so we took some more students off of our budget forecast, which in hindsight makes me really, really thankful that we did, because now we'd be talking a 300 student delta instead of a 100 student delta, and that's real money, and we would really be in a bad way. But we were assuming the attendance rate or attendance funding rate of about 92.3% off 11.5, traditionally about 93%, so that actually felt like it was pretty comfortable. But then we started really looking at demographic reports and expectations on the ground, and we dialed back the 11.5 to about 11.3. So good job us being conservative and not going crazy. Student attendance, we've been hovering right around 95%. That little hat in the middle there, that drastic increase, that was the year that we got a hold harmless from TEA. That was right in the middle of COVID. So assume that blip never happened, and it shows you a much better trend. We were a little bit above 95. We dipped a little bit below 95. Now we're approaching right back at 95% student attendance rate. That's historically where we've been in the past. So we're hovering right around 95. We're just on either side of it, depending on the year and depending on what cold and flu do to us during the year. Because I just can't help myself, we've already covered this slide. This is mainly the SHAR slide, and I told you earlier we are reviewing to see if we're going to continue our participation in SHARs. It's a really beneficial program for our students, but we need to also consider the staff cost and staff time that it takes to respond to all of the expectations for SHARs as to whether we're going to continue in that program. Remind you of our expenditures, majority of them, 85% are payroll, and then we have contracted services, supplies, other operating costs. In the debt service fund only, we have debt service. With state law, I cannot use surplus funds in the general fund to pay debt service anymore. If you remember when we did the tax ratification election back in 15, 16, 16, 17, somewhere in that range, we had an M&O rate of $1.04, and we increased it to $1.17, so we added 13 cents to it. Well, we took the 13 cents from the INS side, and that yielded about $4 million more in state revenue, but it also meant that we had to make annual debt service payments out of the general fund. So net effect was about $1.5 million. By the time we accounted for the increased debt service payments in the general fund, it earned us about $1.5 million more from TEA. Long story to tell you that I'm under time budget right now and I had to fill something, but that loophole has been canceled for us, so we can't do that anymore. So all of our debt service payments come out of the debt service fund, which is supported by that INS tax rate. And then we also have capital outlay expenditure that's in 6,600 accounts. Payroll accounts for about 80 to 85% of our budget. We do utilize staffing guidelines at the campus level to ensure equitable positions in light campuses. All that to say, we make sure the elementaries are staffed like the other elementaries. Junior highs are staffed like the other junior highs, and high schools like other high schools. Additional positions are funded through grant funds, and that may be a benefit to some campuses that other campuses may not receive. We have some campuses that do not qualify for Title I funding. We don't have many, but we have a few. So there may be positions that are on a Title I campus that are not on a non-Title I campus, and that is merely a result of one campus getting Title I funds and utilizing their funds for that purpose, the other campus not qualifying for Title I funding, so they don't have that position. Budget Reduction Committee, so this has been a multi-year process. So last year, the Budget Reduction Committee started looking at discretionary expenditures, that 15% that we have control over that are not tied up into people. Excuse me, so this committee met last year. It's made up of a lot of district leaders, some teachers, paraprofessional staff, campus principals. So we have a good cross-section of our district that serves on this, or served on that committee last year. And they recommended a good number of spending cuts, discretionary spending cuts to campus budgets. Pretty much every budget in the district was hit with a 10% reduction this year as we allocated funds. Secondary campuses volunteered an extra 10%. And so secondary campuses gave back 20% of their budgeted funds, and then the other campuses and departments gave back 10%. It's not perfect across the board. We know that we have some mandatory spends from the state legislature, so like CTE has a mandatory spend. I can't really give them a 10% reduction, and if I'm not going to meet my mandatory spend, I'm just going to have to give that money back to TEA. So there are some specific allocations, GT, career tech, special education, at-risk, and bilingual that come from the state that we will make sure that we're in compliance with their spend. But if they're over that mandatory spend, then we will implement that 10% cut like everybody else received. That was last year. This year, a subsection of that committee met or started meeting in October, and we've met just about every single month to start talking about our staffing levels. We know that as a district, if we're going to make any bottom line recommendations for our expenditures going forward, that about 80 to 85% of those are going to directly involve people. We're not really going to move the needle just playing in the 15% sandbox of discretionary expenditures. So this committee has met again since October, and we have a framework. So the committee wrapped up their work in February, and they gave a lot of feedback and suggestions. Cabinet met on Friday afternoon for about 2.5, 3 hours, and we listened to all of the input that our budget reduction staffing committee had for us with a host of different items. And we developed a little framework that we're still in the process of finalizing, but we at least have some guidelines going forward. At this point, we have a recommendation from Cabinet to trim approximately $1.3 million in expenditures for going forward, and we know that's going to come out of personnel expenditures. Again, the framework's not complete at this point. We still have some items that we're looking into to see if we can't enhance that $1.3 million to make that a little bit more robust. Okay. Instructional changes for next year, there's not a laundry list here. The biggest instructional changes from Eureka to Bluebonnet Math. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you there. Budget expectations. So next year, we are expecting about 300 more students ADA from this year. Yes, ma'am.
How much is it that we're going to receive for us putting in place Bluebonnet Math?
When you say receive, is that through a grant to fund the purchase of it, or is that through additional instructional materials allotment money?
Well, I understood that because Bluebonnet is HQIM, that we were supposed to receive more. I don't know if it's a grant or if it's just a straight fund or what.
Yes, ma'am. So you're referring to additional funds for instructional materials allotment that we can receive. I believe it's $40 for the HQIM component and an additional $20 if it's an open source material. That's about the extent that I'm going to be able to answer your question, though, Ms. Grievel, because I don't really know where we fit in with that at this point. So I'll have to get back with you and get you a better answer going forward. Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am. So for next year, the demographer is estimating about 400 additional students within the district. So right now, our revenue estimate is going to be looking at about 300 of those. We're not going to budget all 400. We're going to budget 300 or maybe even a little bit less as we start diving into those numbers. That number won't be shored up until we get the next demographic estimate from the demographer to see if there's been any change in next year's estimated enrollment as a district. If there has, we'll probably, and it's downward, we'll probably be more conservative and shave off even more students off that estimate. If it is an upward trend, we might keep the number roughly about the same, again, to be conservative, make sure we don't get out in front of ourselves. We do anticipate that taxable values in our district will increase, whether that's from additional value being added to the roll or increases as levied or as determined by the appraisal district. Right now, I've placed 10% as the increase in property values. There's no science to it. I anticipate that our increase will exceed the compression rate from the state, so we will, and we're already at the tax rate floor. So any additional increase that we have, we will stay at that floor. That floor is about 4% to stay at that floor. So I believe we'll be north of that. It does change a little bit on the backside in terms of state revenue calculations and recapture. But as we start getting those value estimates from the appraisal district, we will better hone in that 10% number. We expect student attendance to return to about 95%. We've been hovering on either side of it for a little while. We anticipate we'll still be right around 95. All that leads us into local revenues. We believe local revenues will be up about $3 million for next year. But the downward side of that, it's like a teeter-totter. When one side goes up, the other comes down. We expect state revenues to decrease about $1.7 million. We expect our recapture payment to potentially increase about $500,000. And so if you do plus local, minus state, minus additional recapture, you get about $800,000 of additional revenue for next year off 300 students. Before all of the compressions, we would expect about $2 million, 1.8 to 2 million in additional revenue with 300 students. So it just kind of shows you the impact of that revenue compression from the state legislature. Expenditure considerations, things that we are looking at for next year. We would really like to fund a staff salary increase across the district. We know that this year we didn't have one. It's our goal to not make that a new norm, a new habit. That was partly why we were convening the Budget Reduction Staffing Committee, was so that we could really look at where we could make some hay and try to fund a staff salary increase. We know that Wyoming is expanding with their new building. Their capacity went from 425 to roughly 750 or 800, depending on the programs that are in. And so it's our anticipation that Wyoming will have more students. More students will mean more staff, but we also know that as a lottery school, they're pulling students from other campuses. So we are looking at the impact when the lottery closes as to what teachers can be, what FTEs can be moved from one campus over to Wyoming so that we're not having to add FTEs. I can't tell you it's going to be a perfect move. My luck, the reason I don't go to the casinos very often, will tell you that it will be the most imperfect move humanly possible, and we'll be looking at adding FTEs at every grade level. But this is also early March, and that doesn't close until, I believe, after spring break. So we'll have a couple more weeks to really look at that and see where those students are coming. And then if we can, we would love to support our departments who took the cuts this past year with their staggering cost increases. But we know that is not priority 1.1, that is priority 1.3 if we can get there. Speaking of our priorities, this is the part that we tell you what our priorities are, and we ask for your feedback to move, change, add, or delete anything that you would like to see different on this. This is what we're going to use going into the rest of our budget preparation for 25-26. In Tier 1, our priorities are to grow fund balance, to continue that healthy level of fund balance, staff salary increases, and then we would like to explore improving the practice field over at Lumpkins so that we can use that more safely and more readily for our students since football from WHS still practices over at Lumpkins and not on their home campus. Within Tier 2, we would like to increase the budget for buses. We know that cost has increased. When I started here, buses, a brand new bus was under $100,000, and now it's $150,000. I don't like to think that I've been here forever. I don't think 12 years is that terribly long, but in 12 years, for those costs to go up over $50,000 on a bus is really putting a little strain on us. So we would like to increase our transportation budget so that we can continue buying buses as a growing district and serving additional campuses. We would also like to increase or maintain our one-to-one technology device relationship for our students and teachers across the district. Things that have come up previously in conversations with staff, we would like to explore reducing employees' costs for healthcare. This one is a little bit of a challenge, and I'm just being honest with you. We don't have more than about 53% of our staff that take our healthcare. So any adjustment that we make in the amount that the district covers for healthcare barely is going to cover half of our employees. So that's realistically why we've tended more towards staff salary increases than growing our healthcare, like health insurance contribution, because we know that about 47, almost 50% of our staff would see no benefit if we start increasing our contribution, monthly contribution to health insurance. And then, of course, if we could restore operational budgets to pre-cut levels, that would be great. But realistically, I don't see that happening, but it is a Tier 2 item. So if we can get through Tier 1 and have some money left, we would love to try to address that if we could. Tier 3, develop a retirement matching program and an attendance buyback program. These are suggestions that have been brought by staff who have seen them in another district. They do sound like very worthwhile programs that would really help us not only show and honor our staff, show them support and honor them as they go into the retirement side, but also on the attendance buyback. We really need our teachers here, and if we can reward them for not using a day, we would love to do it. Again, if I can't get through priority 2, I'm probably not, or Tier 2, I'm probably not getting to Tier 3 either. So it's one of those things that we'd really like to consider looking at going forward. It's just probably not the year for us to do that. So with that, you've listened to me ramble on for 42 plus minutes. So I'm going to take a breather and drink some water, and I would love to hear your feedback on anything that should be on this list, anything that's on this list that shouldn't be on this list, or anything that's mistiered on this list, so that we can make sure that we have a good plan going forward for next year.
Brian, could you put a dollar amount on Tier 1 things like, I don't know, 3% staff, how much would that be? How much do we want to grow the fund balance? How much is the lumpkins?
I can't on grow fund balance because with the opening of Waxahachie Creek, I want that number to be as high as humanly possible, because I know that I'm going to run into some real expenditures when I open that campus. There's just a lot of staff that go into opening a high school, and I anticipate that we'll be able to move some staff FTEs from Waxahachie High School, but it's not going to be a one-to-one. I can't just, there's still going to be some students at Waxahachie that are going to need freshman English. They're going to need sophomore English. There are going to be students at Waxahachie Creek that need freshman English or sophomore English. We might even have some accelerateds that need junior English by the time we get there, or insert other core subject. Maybe it's Algebra 2 by the time that they're sophomores. So it's not as easy as just saying, well, I took half the freshmen off of Waxahachie High, so half the FTEs go to Creek. A lot of that will also deal with some of the certifications of what teachers can teach. That's a long-winded answer to, I don't know that I could ever put a limit to growing fund balance. I understand that it needs to be reasonable, but I also understand that I have a really big campus that's opening in a couple of years, so I'd love it as high as possible. To answer your question directly, with a 3% staff salary increase, the last time we looked at it was about $800,000 for every 1%, so that'd be about $2.4 million for a 3%. Improving of the Lumpkins practice field, have not really put a whole lot of engineering into it. No engineering into it. So if I had to stick my finger in the air and guess, I would tell you it's probably going to be $400-ish thousand to improve that, because that area was meant as a detention retention facility. It was not necessarily intended as a more safe and level practice field that we are currently using it as. So if I had to really ballpark you, I would tell you I'm probably shooting for about $4 million of Tier 1 items. Tier 2, if you'll give me 150 for a bus, I'd feel comfortable. 200,000 for increased student enrollment for the one-to-one items, I would feel pretty comfortable there as well. Employees' healthcare, with the rate that healthcare keeps going up, that would be a significant jump. Right now, I believe our employees are seeing roughly a 10 or 11% annual increase in those healthcare costs. And then operational budgets, we trimmed about 1.7 million in operational budgets last year. So let's see, the math that I should have done on my calculator tells me I'm about 5.5 to 6 million to get from all the way through tier 2 items. And then tier 3, honestly, I don't have any cost ideas for tier 3 at this point.
When it comes to fund balance, obviously, I've been a big proponent of increasing that as much as possible. And I still am. I think we need to find a happy medium of to where we're closing the gap, but not closing it all in 1 year.
Yes, sir. Makes sense.
But still making significant progress to where over a certain amount of time we will be able to close that gap.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Collin, I am sorry, I was scribbling down notes. Would you repeat just real quickly, because you were very fast on this, staff salary increase, what it would cost?
That was 800,000 for every 1%.
Okay.
So 800,000 times whatever percent you would like. Ms. Timmerman asked for a 3%, so I threw out 2.4 million, just
Right.
as the ballpark on that one.
I got it down the second time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I did have one question about the attendance buyback program. We have some kind of attendance buyback program, don't we? What is that? Our
Right
retirement
now, we have a
for
retirement
retirees?
incentive that, yes, ma'am. So the retirement incentive, the local retirement incentive says that if you give us your notice of intent to retire 90 days before the end of your year, whether you're a teacher, it's the academic year. If you're a year-round employee, it's at least 90 days before you retire. If you give us that notice, it is actually a retirement, so you're not just quitting and going somewhere else. So you're filing the retirement paperwork, and you have 95% attendance in each of the current year and the previous 2 years, so 3 years combined. Then we offer half your daily rate up to 40 days, and that can be from state and local. Yes, sir.
Is there not, though, a number of years you have to work for WISD?
Yes, sir, sorry, 15 years. So it's with 15 years and you're retiring. Thank you for catching that. So we do have a retirement incentive. An attendance buyback program essentially would be open to every employee every year. So it essentially would put a value on your local days. If you didn't use one local day, you could sell it back to the district for $100 or $50, whatever value we put on it, and that would just be extra money in your pocket for not using that day.
So would we do both? I guess, you know, I mean,
We could, absolutely.
okay, because, okay. It'd be a lot of money.
ma'am.
Thank you.
I know I've vaguely mentioned this many months in the past. Have you ever looked at, instead of giving a salary increase across the board, dividing it up between instructional, administrative, support services, and each year, everyone knows that they're getting one, but they know that they're only gonna get one every 3 years to kind of lessen that burden every single year to where it's on a rotation?
Yes, sir. So that's one of the plans that we're kind of looking into going forward. You know, as a wholesale approach to it, one thing that we don't really get to impact would be when our friends down in Austin pass a bill that says this group gets an increase this year. Well, in our scenario, if we're doing it once every 3 years, now if it's out of cycle, yes, in theory, there should be some funds behind it in Austin, but that would be the one thing that might get a little sticky for us. If last year was a teacher year and Austin says teachers will get an increase this year, then that would be 2 in a row. Not that that's bad for them. That just may be a little challenge on some of our other departments understanding why, hey, they got 2 in a row. Well, yeah, because Austin said so and they put money behind it. But yes, that's one of the ways that we're looking at going forward, and doesn't have to just be a across-the-board staff salary increase. We definitely can tier it in by pay scale or by position type going forward. Yes, sir.
Anyone else for Mr. Cole?
With no staff increase last year, I think it's vital that this year's budget has something in there for staff increases. And the Lumpkins practice field, with the building of Creek and keeping our facilities pretty much, Lumpkin needs some improvement if we're gonna,
Yes, ma'am, that's a really good point, as we're trying to head off disparities between the two high schools so that it's not a have and have not scenario upon the opening of Waxahachie Creek. So we did not include Waxahachie High School or Simpson Elementary in Proposition C of the 2023 bond. So as we're able, we're trying to make these improvements that can help level the playing field, pun intended, between Waxahachie High School and Waxahachie Creek. Yes, sir.
If I could, and thank you for asking that, Ms. Timmerman. So the practice field space is pretty critical as far as, our program is very big, robust, and the space, the actual football field space for practice gets pretty crowded. And there's that piece, and you said it. Whenever we renovated Lumpkins, we didn't finish. There was a part that didn't get finished. We call it the dirt room. And eventually, as Creek opens up and we have a second comprehensive high school and we play, that's the home stadium, because we're not going to have a second home stadium. It's really likely that we will need to look at that space and finish it out. It's a mirror image of the space on the other side. As far as locker room space, it's just not finished.
Yeah, it's nothing.
So, yeah,
Dirt.
we call it the dirt room
It
for a
is.
reason, so.
Mr. Calden, I just want to thank you and thank the Budget Reduction Committee for all y'all's work. I know that there are a lot of districts that are hurting financially, and we've been very smart with our money, and so I really appreciate everything that you've done to keep us in the position that we're on. For me, I think kind of what President Autry said, growing the fund balance, I think is very important, but I think we definitely have to look at getting our teachers a pay raise this cycle.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
Just thank you. Thank you to everybody that worked so hard on this. We know you did. I do have one question, of course. So is there any thought process, and I would not think we would this year, but the moving back the budget till July?
So
there's
I'm glad you brought that up. I definitely don't want to do it this year because we'd be way behind the eight ball to try to
Right.
get it pulled together. In all honesty, I'm not a fan of July, and a lot of it goes back to what we talked about with property taxes. I know that July would line up better with some of our grant years. For some of them, it would create a longer carryover, which is neither here nor there. We've got the staff that can handle that and address that problem as is. I also know that would line up better with campus operations, so that would make those budgets available to our campuses when the principals are here in the summer leading into campus operations. Two things that I worry about most is 98% of our budget is driven by property taxes, and not knowing what those certified values would be before we adopt a budget is really concerning. I don't have a good measuring stick to determine whether or not a significant component of my revenue, again, our local revenues make up 55-ish% of our budget. So the vast majority component of my local revenues, I have no way of really confirming if I'm on target or not. So it's a swing and guess at that point, which is a little concerning. As a conservative budgeter, I don't like swinging months. The other thing that worries me a little bit is going into it, that means I'm really done budgeting about the middle of April, beginning of May, because then I have to start finalizing it and I have to start preparing the postings to go online. Those generally have to be there by the end of May, first part of June, so that you can adopt a budget in June for the July fiscal year. All cards on the table. There are some years that we are not done identifying FTE needs for the following year, and there have been other years that we have used some programs in the last couple of years that have helped us trim our FTE needs. So I do worry about our staffing getting more out of alignment when we have to make that decision earlier without having really good data at that point. So that's the other thing, that my biggest revenue and my biggest expenditure would kind of be swinging bunts, the revenue more than the expenditure side. So those are the two things, the two real big holdups for me that make me not a fan of that July 1 fiscal year. But it's definitely a conversation that we can have between the board and superintendent and myself, and happy to explore it, and I'll learn to cope.
We had a robust discussion about it when I was in Austin a couple of weeks ago. My major concern is that every other year, as we know, the legislature meets, and you would not know what funds were going to be available until June 1st. And so that would be a major concern, you know, but we had some districts do it, but of course that first year, it's just getting into it. And you have a great savings that first year.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate where you're coming from, and I truly think that's something that over time, it would become second nature and it would not be as big of a hurdle. It's the first year and learning the process that would really give me the concern on the property tax side and on the staffing side. The discretionary expenditures, quite honestly, would be irrelevant. Yes, you would save 2 months of utility costs, but beyond that first year, we have 12 months in a budget every year on those discretionary expenditures.
Well, just so you know, I was against it, but I just wanted to bring it up because I know we had talked about it at one point, maybe last year. Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Mr. Collins. All right, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, board.
Okay, it is now 4:57. The board's going to convene into closed session according to section 551.001 exec of the Texas Government Code. 6:14. The board's going to reconvene back into open session. At this time, I'm going to ask Mr. Cooper to lead us in our invocation, followed by our pledge of allegiance to the American and Texas flag by Cale Foster and Ansley Rogers.
Yes, let us pray. Heavenly Father, most gracious Eternal God, we thank you for Waxahachie ISD and the school community. Father, we thank you for all who have joined and gathered tonight to be a part of this meeting. We ask that you would guide our hearts and prepare our minds that we may make the best decisions that will impact and affect our students and our community. Father, forgive us for the ways that we have failed. Father, help us keep the main thing, which are our students. Father, we ask you again to guide our minds and our hearts, and we thank you for the ability to serve. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you.
Our vision is to be a district where innovation thrives and growth is limitless.
We value choices because they make us unique and are critical to learning.
We value a collaborative culture that honors and supports all who positively impact the lives of our students.
We value an environment of belonging that respects individual differences and ensures equality for all.
We value relationships that broaden learning experiences and enrich our community.
Next item on our agenda will be our recognitions. Mrs. Troll, we have a few of those tonight.
Yes, thank you, Board, and Dr. Averett. Our first recognition tonight will be for our All-State Band members. So I welcome Gary Bernard, Director of Fine Arts.
Right there. All right, hey, thank you. Good evening, board members and Dr. Averett. Tonight, I'd like to recognize our band All-State students. Beginning each fall, over 70,000 high school students across the state audition in their TMEA region. Individuals perform college-level music for a panel of judges who rank each instrument. A select group of musicians advance to compete against musicians from other regions in their TMEA area. The highest-ranking musicians judged at TMEA area competitions qualify to perform in one of the 18 Texas All-State ensembles. Congratulations to WISD's All-State band students, Eric Schutz, 12th grade French horn, and he is a 3-time All-State member. I'm gonna wave. Luke Weir, 11th grade French horn. Brianna Christian, 10th grade bass clarinet. Jaden Yarborough, 12th grade Barry saxophone. Students named All-State musicians performed at the TMEA Clinic and Convention in San Antonio last month. More than 30,000 people from Texas and around the world attend this convention. Congrats to these fantastic students, their directors, private lesson teachers, and their parents.
Next, I want to welcome Brian Rogers, our athletic director, to recognize our state swimmer, Dia Henderson.
Good evening, Board. Dr. Averett. We'd like to recognize and congratulate our state qualifier swimmer, Dia Henderson, for her exceptional achievements in the pool this season. Not only has Dia demonstrated dedication and skill, but she also now holds 5 individual school records, a remarkable accomplishment that shows her hard work and talent. Congratulations, Dia, on setting a standard of excellence, and also to our coaches, Coach Pruitt and Coach Garrett Davidson. Again, Dia Henderson, state qualifier in the 50-meter freestyle.
Okay, Board, next I want to welcome Melissa Abity. She is going to be presenting on our SSCP winners and our Destination Imagination participants.
Good evening. We are excited to present to you some of our accomplishments from student groups in the areas of Destination Imagination and SSEP. Our patch winners and our experiment winners have been led by 2 coordinators district-wide this year, and that's Teresa Smithy and Barbara McLucky. And from the elementary component, we have our 5th grade winner from Shackleford Elementary, Helen Rincon. Our secondary patch winner is Yaritzi Kalonskin. Let me say that again. Kalontzen. She's in the 9th grade at Waxahachie High School. These students' patches will accompany our experiments into space. All 6th grade students had the opportunity to come to experiment and create an experiment for this competition, and the selected team will, their experiment will be performed at the International Space Station, proudly representing Waxahachie ISD, and that team is from Finley Junior High and Miss Dawson's class. Their experiment is growing strawberries in microgravity. That's Lucas Brooks, Kellen Johnston, Reagan Tribe, and Dakota Weir. Thank you for representing Waxahachie ISD so well. Next up, we have winners from our Regional Destination Imagination Tournament that was held at WHS recently. Our first team in the scientific category at the elementary level earned 6th place at regionals. That's Hyla Songer, Harper Harrison, Noah Snow, Journey Robinson, Brooks Authier, Luke Trout, Liberty Meredith, led by team managers Brittany Songer and Kim Robinson. And this team is the Bettermans from Wallman STEAM Academy. Next up in the technical category at the elementary level, we have 3rd place at regionals and high IC. Those team members are Collins Gary, Kinley Rogers, Matthew Osborne, Ren Wilson, Amelia Koenig, Campbell Authier, Benjamin Cox, and the team managers. Here is Kate Authier, and they are Team Avocado from Wallman STEAM Academy. Next up in the DI Extreme category, we have 3rd place at regionals with Samuel Osborne, Avery Mendoza, Henry Wilson, Capri Robinson, Emma Gary, Emma Hargrove, Anderson Authier, and their team manager is Haley Osborne, and this is the Exploding Stars representatives. Next up in the DI Extreme category for second place at regionals, we have Oscar Salas, Santiago Daffrin, Fausto Martinez, Iker Flores, Maria Martinez, Maita Gabriola, and Annalise Gutierrez, led by the team managers Claudia Gutierrez and Myra Martinez for the hole-in-one Howards. Our last team to present to you this evening is in the DI Extreme Challenge, first place at regionals, moving to state competition for 3 times in a row. We have team members Rachel Eipert, Rose Lantrip, Lucas Brooks, Camden Sierri, led by Ashley Sierri and Jacqueline Richards for the Believer Beavers at the junior high level. After the picture. The Believer Beavers who are moving to state would like to share with you all what DI means to them.
What DI means to... Okay. Can I go?
Just one second. Okay, the Believer Beavers moving to state competition want to share with you what DI has meant to them thus far.
What DI means to me is togetherness, community, finding where I belong, while collaborating with my peers and having a more global perspective on the world.
What DI means to me is being able to celebrate my love for STEM and theatrics with others.
What DI means to me is to be able to be creative and collaborate with my friends.
DI helped me get closer to my friends and also taught me how to work together with people with different personalities.
Thank you. Okay, our final recognition tonight is going to be given by Ginger Robinson, our Director of Counseling.
Good evening, Board. Tonight, I am here to celebrate our Marvin Biomedical Academy counselor, Heather Alverson, who has been awarded the Care Solace Super Care Heroes Award. WISD partners with Care Solace to streamline access to quality mental health and substance use treatment providers for students, school staff, and their families. By simplifying the mental health referral process, Care Solace helps bridge the gap between school support systems and community resources, ensuring that individuals receive the help that they need. Services expand upon existing school-based support and provide equitable access to care, regardless of insurance coverage, making mental health services more accessible for all members of the school community. We are fortunate to offer Care Solace as a mental health resource to our WISD students, staff, and families. Each year, Care Solace recognizes individuals who help the most students through the Care Solace program. In 2024, they recognized one of our own, Miss Heather Alverson. We are proud of Miss Alverson for utilizing Care Solace to support our students and their families at Marvin Biomedical Academy. Congratulations, Heather.
Okay, our next item on our agenda will be our open forum. This time, I don't believe we have anyone signed up to speak. So we're going to move to our report section. This will be our report A, which will be our superintendent's report. Dr. Averett?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Just as we normally do each month, we provide our Oh, I'm sorry. I always forget to turn the light. Thank you. I'll start over. We do our monthly ISD enrollment and ADA report for the month of February. We can see our enrollment pretty much holding steady from January to February, 11,173 students. Our ADA was a little bit less at 93.18. We do know that January and February we got hit pretty hard with cold and flu, and we also had 1 day of not bad weather, but cold weather. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's what I'm talking about right now. So Wednesday, February 19th was really cold. I think that's the expression of the students who did not want to come to school, but we had school anyway. We had school as scheduled. Some of our families chose not to send their children to school. Our attendance rate was around 84% for that Wednesday. We will qualify for a waiver because it was more than 10% difference between our ADA on that date last year. So we can complete a waiver to TEA. We'll do that at a later date as we get closer to the end of the year before final submission is due. Our district vulnerability assessment. If you remember, we had a district vulnerability assessment with representatives from TEA, and the team came and they had to go to 85% of our campuses, which was 15% of our campuses they had to visit. They had to meet with the principal, walk the campus, look at a whole bunch of different things on the campus. We will get that report in person this week. We knew that there would be some findings because the list of things that we have to do as a district are very, very extensive. And so we knew that we would have some findings. A finding's not a failure. It's an opportunity for us to improve. And so we know we'll have a few. And we get to work with our representatives as far as setting up the timelines of when we get those things remediated. So we know we'll have a handful of things we need to work on, and we'll do that. But overall, from what when our day was with Mr. Turnbow, who is our rep, very positive. A lot of gold standard things that we do in WISD for safety that he noted. So I'm looking forward to his report. It's back. We're going to have a job fair this year after a several-year break. We haven't had a job fair in several years. We're going to conduct one on a district-wide job fair on Saturday, April 5th. We will be at the Waxahachie High School Gymnasium from 9 to 11. Every campus and department will have an opportunity to set up a table. We'll also have, in one of our auxiliary gyms, spots available to conduct kind of follow-up interviews if there's somebody that comes by and a principal wants to spend more time with that person to get set up for next year. So we're excited. We haven't had a job fair in at least 5 years, and so we're excited to have one this year on April the 5th. I want to thank Mrs. Burkhalter, of course, for her leadership, and also Derek Zant as the principal of Global. We asked him if he'd like to help lead this, and he said, yeah, I'll help. So he's also been providing some good leadership with this process. And that's all I have tonight, sir.
Any questions for Dr. Avery?
No, but I have a comment.
Yes.
I'm so glad that we're having a job fair. I never could understand why they went away, because we always need teachers, so I'm glad to see that coming back.
Anyone else? Okay. Move to report B, which will be our informational bond 2023 construction update. Mr. Mott?
Good evening, Board, Dr. Averett. I'm going to give you your informational report for your construction May 2023 bond construction update. We'll start at Wildman Steam. It is 100% complete. We had grand opening last week, had great participation from the community. It was a very good event. Everyone toured the building, and it was really good success there. We did come under budget there in that building to the total of $3,343,951.14. That'll be coming to you as a change order later in the meeting tonight. So that is a nice thing that we did come under, and that is on the construction side of things. That's not the full 100% build. That is on the construction side of things. That's what you approved as a GMP. That's what we came under on that one. BTC has completed their punch list. They are no longer on site. We do have some. They are still doing things. If we come up with warranty issues, they will have. We have 4 other BTC employees here in the district on a daily basis. Anyways, actually, we have 8 of them in the district right now. So they'll send somebody over there with anyone that comes in. If we have a warranty issue, we send a warranty ticket in. When that vendor or subcontractor shows up, they'll have someone there to address the issue and look at that. We have a few of those issues being looked at here and there. We may have a faucet that's leaking. They're waiting on the faucet to come in, things like that. But we're constantly staying up on that. The Hancock building, we're about 70% complete there. We're showing about a $650,000 savings currently right now. The main things we're working on right now there are the storm shelter and the boys athletic area, which is the area, the old ag shop in the back. We're turning that into the boys athletic area back there, a locker room and a weight room and everything in there. Right now we're mainly working on sheetrocking, painting, tiling on the walls, and then we're hoping to get the electric service turned on, the main one turned on in the storm shelter. Main thing we're waiting on, we're wanting to get everything painted and sheetrocked and all that in that room before we just turn on it. And we have a lot of people coming and going in there with that service on and everything else. We are on track to be completed on April 30th of 2025. Show you a few pictures there. Picture on the top left is the main band, the hall that go through the band hall from outside into the building. On the left would be your band hall. On the right would be your 2 practice ensemble rooms. The picture on your top right is the actual main band hall. We have full power in there. You're seeing permanent power with the lights and everything being run in that wing of that building, that area of that building right there. And again, that is the area in front of the building that is to the left of the front doors over towards the gym, but that area we added on the front, that's what that area is of the building. Then you have the area there on the bottom left and bottom right. That is a storm shelter. You can see that now that we're getting on, we're starting to sheetrock, we're starting taping bed. They'll start painting. You'll see the tile start going up on the walls. That one's going to start changing very quickly, very fast. Howard Junior High, we're about 25% complete there. We are currently running about $1.5 million under budget there. Now remember, this is a combined GMP with Findlay and Howard are combined there. And so that's a combined savings between the two. Now remember, that savings is from what we approved as a GMP. If you remember back when we did approve that GMP, we were over the original construction budget that the bond was built on, of around $3 million to $4 million of somewhere in that neighborhood we were over. So we're still over budget on what the bond did, but we're doing better by staying under that. So just so you understand, that's not 1.5 under what the bond was budgeted at. It's what we did on GMP for the build. With that, we're starting to sheetrock under the awning, framing on both sides. You can see that, and we're on time to be finishing that for beginning of August. So you can see here in the top left, that is up under the awning. It used to be picnic tables, and you could eat out in there. Now we're closing that into some of the smaller pull-out classrooms, those kind of things, and the drama room will also be out there. So that's the pictures on the top left, and bottom right. And the picture on the top right, that is actually the new cafeteria addition on the outside of the cafeteria out there. So that'll be in, then we'll break out the wall between there and open it all up into one big cafeteria area there. And that wall won't probably be out until after the kids leave. In some meetings the other day, they're really not going to gain much by putting up a temp wall. Just to take the temp wall down later, we're not going to gain much time, so they're just going to get everything they can finished and then just break the wall out once the kids are in. So we won't be putting a temp wall up on that side. Maybe. There it goes. Finley Junior High, we're the same thing, about 25% complete. So I just explained that one on the budget side there. The electric transformer, we do have to upsize that transformer. It is too small. So with that building being built when it was built in the early 80s, that transformer is still from there. That transformer couldn't have bus bars added to it or anything like that. It's too old and it wasn't able to. So we have to put in a larger transformer into that one. So in the last 2 weeks, we've been running all the conduit and everything out from the pole out to where we're putting the new transformer right back next to it. You'll see a picture here. So next week, we're shutting power down Friday night. Won't turn it on until the following Saturday. We'll pull the old transformer, put the new transformer in, pull all the wires, do all that, get everything, get all this new switch gears all hooked in, everything else. So there's going to be extensive work. They'll be working a full 7 to 8 days in a row, just mainly on this. Now, the rest of the building, there'll still be construction going on, but they're going to be powered by generators there. So spring break, it'll be a little bit busy, but it will not be any power in the building, but they'll be working with generators and things like that. So you're going to see that we're finishing up the demo in the old office area. We got that a little early. Thank you to Mr. Blanco for letting us do that. Originally, we were supposed to take it over at spring break. He moved out late January, early February. And you can see it's actually probably early February more than late January when he moved out. You'll be able to see here in a minute is we've already done 90% of the demo or more, 95% of the demo has been done in that area. It'll be kind of interesting to see some of that when you see some pictures here in a minute. And then we're trying to get finished closing in the front, so it'll be all dried in. And again, we are on time in that one there. That'll have a lot of demo this summer when we really get into taking the cafeteria down to one level, the ceiling all the way up, the library down to one level. There'll be a lot of renovation interior this summer. It'll be really busy in that building. This doesn't want to act right. So a picture on your top left, there's your transformer area. You can see the current transformer there on the left of that picture. You can see those gray pipes in the middle. That's where the new transformer is going to go. So like I said, the conduits all ran. They'll start pulling the wire this week and all that kind of stuff on, I think it's Monday, I think actually Encore will be there pulling wire and things like that once the new transformer's dropped in. I think they're planning to do that Saturday or Monday, and then they'll start pulling wire right after that. So the picture on your bottom left, that is standing. When you would have gone into that building last school year, that is standing where the receptionist sat. I'm standing exactly where her office desk was, looking out towards the door. So all that was where, between me and those people where I'm standing and those people in that yellow shirts there, there was a glass wall and there were offices all there. You can see in a month, it's gone. You can see there behind that pillar, that is actually the edge of the lobby right there. Where that black wall is, that was the front doors to the building. So you can tell how much demo has been done in that area there. Picture on your top right is looking through the new ad. You can see there as they started to put some interior walls, exterior walls. You can see the windows starting to get framed up and stuff like that. Bottom right you're seeing there, that is actually the new freezer cooler in the back. And then you can see where the daylights you see there, that is the old wall of the building, and that's the new wall. They're closing that up now, but you can see, I mean, there's a lot going on in demo just to do what we're doing. We're tearing out a lot to make this a lot better. Waxahachie Creek, I'm going to say we're 3% complete. It's kind of hard to judge exactly on that one because we are literally just moving a little bit of dirt, but we are somewhat complete because we've started moving dirt, so we'll say we're something there. Later tonight, you'll be accepting the final GMP for this building. And we have had our third round of civil plan submittals, went in late last week. We're hoping that'll be the last one. There's not much left on that. Once those are, then we'll send the building in. Right as soon as those are approved, we'll send the building in to get the final building permit. Lucky enough, I will tell you is when we sent building permits, we've only had like 5 comments, and most of those have been, we need an exit sign here, an exit sign there. That has been the extent when we've gone to the building side. We've had more comments on the civils and the dirts and utilities and stuff like that. Once we get to the building, VOK's got that stuff down with our city and knowing what they're going to ask and how we need to be and up to code and all that. We've been really lucky there. So we're going to go to Proposition C. So Proposition C, we're currently running on just about every project we do. Not every one, but most of them. I'm going to say 90% or more. We run under budget there. It's a great thing to have until Ryan says, hey, I really need you to spend some money because we need to not try to give interest back. So here I go. So as you can see later tonight, we've got quite a few items on the consent agenda tonight. That's what a lot of that is. But as you can see, by the end of the summer, we'll be 75% complete on Proposition C. Proposition C was priority 1 and 2 from the facility assessment that went on in, I think it was 22 when that assessment went on. Could have been 21, somewhere in there we did that assessment. On that priority 1 and 2, we had 432 total lines that had to be addressed through the district on every school except Waxahachie High School and Simpson Elementary, because those were so new, the bond did not include any part of doing anything to those schools. So of those 432 lines, by the end of summer, we'll have 317 complete with 115 left open. So with that, and seeing the savings we're seeing, Ryan has asked me to start looking deeper, so we went in and we pulled priority 3 and priority 4. So now that added another 539 more line items to look into. Ironically, we've done some of those items either through what maintenance has done, through support services may have done some things here, paint an office there, paint this. We may have floored a building that had it on there, things like that. So we've done some of those, and now we're doing even more this summer. We'll do 146 of those by the end of the summer. We'll have a total of 393 left open. So by the end of the summer, like I said, we'll have 75% of the original bond will be complete by the end of summer. So that is a good thing. It also, like I said, we have savings, so now we're looking deeper as to what can we do on top of what was approved by the bond. What else can we do to help this district get better, facility-wise? So this summer, we're doing 206 different line items if everything gets approved tonight, and those are from full bathroom remodels. When I say full bathroom remodels, I'm talking tile on the floor, tile on the walls, ceiling tile, new partitions. If we need urinals or toilets or sinks or faucets within there, any of those, we're updating all those. We're trying to do most time when we have to pull off a water fountain. If there's no bottle filler there, we'll put at least one back with a bottle filler. We're doing those kind of things that are upgrades that the district that they may not have right now because some of the older campuses like that. We're doing full flooring to buildings. We're doing partial floorings to buildings. So partial flooring would be like Wildman Steam, or TC Wildman building, the old kindergarten wing over there. That was actually part of priority 3. So we're going ahead and doing that while we have savings there. We also don't have any kids there. We can do it a lot easier than having to say, hey, need all you teachers to move your stuff. It's real easy to get in there and take all the flooring up and do those things with no one in there right now. So that'll be things we'll even be able to get done before May. We'll be able to do those kind of things in those buildings. Ceiling tiles, grid, we'll be replacing. We're trying to make an incentive to go from 4x2 ceiling tiles, if you know what I mean, 4 foot long, 2 foot wide, to go all 2x2. Main reason that is a 4x2 sags over time quicker than a 2x2. So it just makes the district look better. Is it adding a little bit of cost on the front end on this time? Yes, but we had it in the bond. So it helps us in all the way around on that. And then we're painting any of the hard pan ceilings that we come to on those and as well. They'll be all painted the same color. If we're having to add if we're adding going from 4x2 to 2x2, we'll paint that whole grid so it all matches. We won't have one bar that's different color. We'll paint the whole grid in that whole hallway or that whole classroom. We'll paint it all to match so it looks good. We're going to be doing the cafeterias getting painted as part of this. Some stucco and exterior painting, some locker room remodels. Now, the full building restoration. This is a very interesting one when I say that is. For anyone that knows the old, I'm going to call it the original credit union, Dr. Avert, Mr. Schoolfield, you'll remember it as where Miss Finley taught history. Over here at the old TC Wildman building, just across from the Wildman building, there's a little building. Right there in your bottom left, that's the building. I've been here 6 years and never been in it until about a month ago. Now, we are totally in the bond in Prop C. We had about $75,000 was in Prop C to tear that building down. We're moving a campus over there that we can revitalize that building and make it very useful for that campus. It'll actually add as a lab structure for that building. So we're using that $75,000 to revitalize that building, putting new electrical, new air conditioning, everything in there, and it's going to look new roof, all of that, power washing. So we're spending it to get the building in the district better. And I think that's a better use of our funds than it would have been. We couldn't have built a building for $75,000 for what we need. So it is, and it's going to look, I mean, it's already, if you go by there now, you can start to see where they're starting to, the roofing will actually start coming off tomorrow, I believe. But they're starting to, like, all that you see there in the brown in the front, that'll all be redone. They're going to power wash everything. We're putting new windows, putting a roll-up door in the back, putting all new flooring in there. So it's going to look brand new, lighting, insulation, new HVAC. I mean, it's going to get the whole works. It's going to be a really nice-looking building in the end. Does anybody have any questions?
I just want to emphasize that particular building remodel answers a question that we had of moving Global back into the Wildman campus, was what do we do with, or where do we put our shop class, particularly Mr. Warren's shop, and this space is going to fit that need for our engineering shop. One of the reasons why we're putting the large overhead door in the back is because some very large equipment that go with that shop that has to be moved in, and it's not going to go through a standard size door. And so I'm just really happy that we were able to look at that building, find a way to really save it and make it work for Global. So thank you for your work on that.
I was going to say this a little later, but it fits in perfect right now. Like you said, most of our consent agenda tonight is for Proposition C.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I was reading that, it was just so exciting because we really take great care of our old facilities. And we would not be able to do any of those if it hadn't been for the support of the community and passing the bond. And that goes along with everything you talk about every month. So it's great.
And I'd like to piggyback on that. Also, thank you for kind of going through the list of all the improvements at the different campuses and saying, well, if we are replacing the floor in the hallway, and we might as well go ahead and do the classrooms. So I appreciate y'all getting the taxpayers' money and using it wisely. So.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else?
You do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you all.
Mott. Okay, moving on to report C, informational report on WISD's balanced scorecard, priority 2 and 3. Ms. Burkhalter.
All right, good evening, Board and Dr. Averett. This month, we are bringing you updates to the balanced scorecard priorities 2, which is honoring and supporting staff, and priority 3, community and stakeholder relationships. Tonight, we'll focus only on areas with updates since our last reports in October and November. All right, in priority 2.1, we continue to grow our relationships with our college and university partners. This spring, we placed 5 student teachers or clinical teachers and 36 observers. In 2.2a, this will be covered in our next report regarding the staff survey. And 2.2b, got it? Okay. We continue listening and learning protocols to create action-oriented responses from staff survey results. Dr. Averett began the spring campus rounds on February 13th with plans to visit all campuses and departments this semester. We're asking each group for feedback on the stop, start, and continue chart. Okay. 2.2c. This year we're growing in how we provide staff with mental health resources. We became aware that there were a few protocols for staff members in the midst of a mental health emergency. So HR and our counseling department collaborated on developing a series of protocols based on the student protocols for suicide. A questionnaire will help the principal, supervisor, counselor, or HR staff to determine the level of threat of suicide when a staff member makes an outcry. Then we can offer them, of course, the most appropriate resources for them to get the help that they need. In 2.3, A and B, the TLI department is continuing to meet with cohorts of teachers to ensure that the TEKs are covered throughout the instructional units and adjusting units for the 25-26 school year. In 2.3C, campuses are continuing to meet with their guiding coalitions to inform decisions on campuses as part of the PLC process. These coalitions, while led by campus administrators, work together to make decisions that drive the campus forward instructionally and logistically. In 2.4, A and B, for our February 3D Day for elementary teachers, TLI created choice opportunities where teachers learned from each other teachers in TLI. These sessions ranged from engagement strategies in the classroom to differentiating for students through the use of accommodations. Our feedback from these sessions was overwhelmingly positive. In 2.4C, this is a continued work in progress and collaborative effort by all departments. Priority 3, community and stakeholder relationships. The student satisfaction survey was deployed through ClassLink on February 14th and will run through this Friday, March 7th. We anticipate bringing the results to you in a report at the April board meeting. In 3.1B, we held 2 town hall meetings in January focusing on the safety, security, and construction updates. We've begun tracking our social media engagement on LinkedIn and Facebook, and so you'll see that page views, clicks, visits, and follows are up over the last 30 days. Interestingly, over 3.5 million views of our content have happened since November 1st. We streamed the town hall meetings, our 12 Days of Christmas giveaways, and a space night through Facebook Live. And district leaders continue to reach out district leaders continue to reach out to the community through speaking engagements such as Morning Brew, Rotary, and town hall meetings. All right, in 3.2C, student organizations are staying active in our community as well by participating in Toys for Tots, local blood drives, Chase's World, which is an autism inclusion event, local churches, and Waxahachie Care. Okay, this concludes our priority 2 and 3 update. Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions on report C? Okay, we'll move to D, which is the Human Resources Department will provide a staff survey results taken from January 6th to February 14th, 2025.
All right, thank you. All right, so this year our staff survey was a team effort, a true team effort. It took individuals from the data team, from HR, from PR, and technology. Over a 6-week period, we took laptops to every department and every campus to give anyone who wanted to give feedback on the survey the opportunity to do so. We ended up with 1,272 responses, which is up. This year, we had 74% of staff participate. Last year, we had only 51%. So we're really, really excited about the number of staff members who were able to give us their thoughts this year. Our overarching goal as we approached the project was anonymity. We found that it's very important to our staff that the survey is as anonymous as possible. So we took laptops to the campuses with the survey link preloaded, ready to go, so staff could walk in, take the survey, click submit, and leave. And no, they did not have to log in. There is nothing that traces it back to them. All right, so I'd like to go over our data. And I'll read each question and the highest scoring area for each question. So there are 4 questions each on 5 slides. Okay, so slide 1, I'm committed to helping my district achieve its goals. 76% said strongly agree. I believe in the strategic direction of my district. 22% agree. I'm proud to work for my district. 46% strongly agree. And I believe my district has a good culture. 27% agree. Okay, employees are treated, on slide 2, employees are treated fairly in my district. 44% agree. I know how my work aligns with the overall goals of my campus and district. 56% said agree. I enjoy my work. 56% strongly agree. And I feel valued at work. 35% strongly agree, but 35% also agree. On slide 3, I receive recognition for good work. 33% strongly agree and agree. I get the training I need to be successful. 30% agree. This might be an area that we need to look at a little more carefully because the strongly agree, neutral, and disagree were all pretty similar. I have the tools and resources I need to be successful. 35% agree. My district leaders treat me with respect. 41% agree. Slide 4, my campus and department leaders are transparent. 46 strongly agree. My district leaders are transparent. 41% neutral. My campus and department leaders communicate well. 35% strongly agree. My district leaders communicates well. 38% agree. Slide 5, I feel comfortable providing feedback to supervisors. 39% strongly agree. My supervisors provide valuable feedback to me. 43% strongly agree. I believe in the leadership of the superintendent. 49% neutral. This question was interesting because it was deployed in a period of transition, and as staff walked in, they wanted to know if they should rate this question based on the previous or current administration. And so that was the ambivalence in that answer. And then employees know the vision and core values of my district. 51% agree. When we get to the comment section of the survey, what our data shows is that our strength is truly in our people. Our staff values the relationships they build, the positive work environment they have, and a sense of belonging in the district. The positive feedback we received were that staff have supportive colleagues and leadership, a deep sense of community and belonging, strong love for students, and value working near their home. Some areas of improvement for us to consider. Teacher support, over 470 individuals said that pay increases were the most important thing to them, along with considerations for workload and expectations. Student needs were also very important. 284 individuals cited curriculum and learning, mental health and counseling, and support of special education students. And finally, administration, 321 individuals cited communication, transparency, policies, and procedures. So from this, district leadership will develop goals to continually improve staff satisfaction and honor and support our staff. We appreciate all who participated in the survey and taking the survey and in deploying it. What questions can I answer?
I just had one question. I see the analysis of what needs improvement. Are we going to receive the comments from the staff that filled out the survey? I know some filled out commentary, and I just wondered if we will be receiving that.
So the one thing I'd like to add about the word cloud that you see, these were the most common words that were mentioned in the comments that were given to us. We can provide you a list of those comments as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. All right, our last report will be our informational report on Chapter 37 Behavior Coalition. Dr. Averett?
Thank you, President Autry. I wanted to bring an informational report on something I brought up in the past related to Chapter 37 Behavior Coalition. That is some folks up to our north, Wiley ISD is kind of driving this with several other districts that have joined on. But basically looking at the fact that it's time for a change for Chapter 37. This is a list of the current coalition members. This is an old list because this was a week and a half ago or so, and I would imagine there's more joining it as we are joining it. But you can see folks from all across the state, some of our neighbors, of course, Corsicana ISD. We all know of a significant incident that happened there in that district this year with a friend of ours that used to work here in our district. But all the way down to Goose Creek, little bitty Woodville, Terrell, another close neighbor to us. So districts all around the state have added their name to this coalition. So one of the things about some stats that this group put together that are, I don't think they surprise us. I think maybe it disappoints us. But they surveyed 2,500 Texas teachers. 94% of them surveyed reported having one or more students who've exhibited severely disruptive behavior in the past year. 70% reported that the disruptive behavior included at least one incident of physical aggression. 44% surveyed reported they had to clear their room due to an aggressive or disruptive student at least once in the last school year. That means everybody that's not engaged in it has to leave the room. So the teacher's in there, or they're in there with that one student, and everybody else is sitting in the hall or has to go to the library or some other place in the campus. 82% of teachers reported they have had at least one or more students be verbally aggressive in class. So when Chapter 37 was written, it was created with the intent to protect marginalized students and give educators new tools for responding to students who were violent, abusive, or chronically disruptive. It was supposed to provide statewide support, general guidelines for discipline, consistency, a way to track student discipline, provide other options, and some avenues for extreme discipline. When it was written, it was about 5 pages. It's now 130 pages of mandates and standards that adversely affect students and teachers and staff and parents. It's our local control has been minimized. There's an imbalance of responsibilities. This is one issue that often comes up especially when assistant principals are dealing with issues, is that rights of general education students are a lot of times ignored. There's micromanagement and loss of power within the district, and highly prescriptive. I know as a former high school principal, as an assistant principal, I lived in Chapter 37. There was a school law bulletin on my desk that I looked at every day when I had an incident, and they didn't always have to be serious incidents, but I would reference it quite often. 5 priorities of the coalition. One is to provide local control, flexibility, safe classrooms, return some responsibility to our parents, and fund and support classroom management training for our teachers. A lot of what we know can minimize incidents of disruptive behavior is a really well-trained teacher in the classroom that understands how to deal with behavioral management and manage their classroom and get things squared away so they don't get to that point. I know a lot of times when we talk about the legislature, we sometimes get frustrated because we believe they're not listening. In this situation, they are listening. This is very encouraging. There are several bills that have either been filed or in the process of being filed, and then we're hopeful that some substantive changes on how we're able to manage severe discipline will come. So pretty excited about the opportunity to be involved with this coalition. Again, like I said, Wiley ISD is a part of it, and they're kind of driving it. Thompson & Horton is the law firm that's doing the legal, the writing of the bills and helping this coalition move some things forward. So, and again, this has gotten the attention of Senator Creighton, Congressman Representative Buckley. So I do feel like there's some momentum there for us. So I just want to give you guys an update on that piece.
Any questions on chapter 37? Okay, we'll move into our rather lengthy consent agenda. We have items A through W, which the overwhelming majority consist of Prop C items up for consideration.
I did want to, excuse me, I did want to make a comment about one of them, consent agenda J. I just thought it was great that we're going to be able to put backpacks in the hands of at-risk kids this summer with things that's going to help them with their reading and math. It's going to connect parents, and we're able to do that with Title I funds. It's not going to cost the district a penny. It's $170,000, so I thought that was really great.
Anyone else?
Well, I had asked that J be moved from the, removed for discussion because I did want some discussion with it, but I believe Ms. Timmerman summed it up fairly well. All of this money is going to be used for backpacks to send home with our Title I kids, but also I wanted, from what I understand and what I remember from when we did it before, this is not the first time we've done it, is that it was very well received, that the principals and the people involved really appreciated when we did it before. President Autry, I don't believe there's a reason to remove it from the agenda then.
Okay, at this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve consent agenda items A through W.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCutcheon,
Second.
second by Mrs. Timmerman. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right, moving to
Mr.
action.
President?
Yes, sir.
You did have an X item that was on the consent agenda.
X?
Yes, sir.
I don't mind.
Item X was an item that was added. It is the relocation of the power lines at the Hancock Building for the athletic fields.
Is it on the published agenda?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I picked mine up today, so, okay.
Sorry. It is on the published agenda, but so we were asking for authority to continue working with Encore to try to get the power lines buried underground for the relocation for the athletic field. We were asking for authority for $200,000. The quote we have right now is $79,000 to move the lines. They would still be above ground moving, so that was the request for action item X. Sorry, consent item X.
All right, so let's do it this way. We have a motion and a second for consent agenda items A through W. So, I mean, all in favor of that, A through W, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries 7-0. Now, we'll have an additional consent agenda item X, as Mr. Colvin just presented. Is there any questions on that one? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the additional agenda, consent agenda item X. Motion by Mr. Schofield.
Second.
Second by Mr. Pitts. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries 7-0. All right, sir. Moving on to action item A, consideration with possible action to approve a TEA maximum class size exemption waiver. Ms. Mott.
Good evening, trustees and Dr. Averett. I'm here tonight to present to you and seek approval for a class size waiver. As you know, elementary school K through 4, our class sizes are 22-1, and we have always done really, really well to maintain that under that number. As we get late in the year, we do try to provide other campuses options for students who enroll at a high enrollment campus that have their own transportation. For example, Simpson, we've had high enrollment all year. Luckily, up until this point, when a new student came into 4th grade, they had their own transportation. They were able to go to Shackelford, and so we were able to stay under that 22-1. We did recently have a student show up 4th grade at Simpson, and they did need bus transportation. And so We were not able to provide that transportation without a new bus route and a new bus driver to get that student to Shackelford or any other one of our campuses. And so that was not cost effective for the district for one route, one driver that we hadn't even been able to employ yet. So we are seeking a waiver for this one student. The student did enroll at Simpson, and they have been attending at Simpson. We have 30 days to secure the waiver. After spring break, waivers are no longer needed. You can go over that 22-1 and not have to submit the waiver. So we are asking for that waiver for that one student at Simpson in 4th grade tonight.
If we weren't so late in the year, would you have to come to us every single time?
Yes, sir. Now, we can choose to do a change in our District of Innovation that would allow for that waiver to happen. Not for the waiver not to happen, we could just go over that ratio. That is something that the District of Innovation Committee could consider in the future. We just have not dealt with this a lot. We have been able to shed those students to surrounding campuses, and we've been fine. And hopefully as we open Wildman next year and that pulls a lot of numbers off of our campuses, we'll stay in that same situation. But if it gets to be happening a lot, then we may need to consider District of Innovation.
Okay. Questions for Mrs. Mott? Okay. I need a motion to approve action item A as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Kriegel,
Second.
second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Board.
All right, action item B will be consideration for possible action to approve a tuition-based WISD pre-K program for the 2025-2026 school year.
Yes, so last month I came to you with an informational agenda item talking about proposing a tuition-based pre-K program here in Waxahachie for our district-only students. We did some research around the area. We came up with prices that both private and public places are charging for their pre-K. So just a little bit of the numbers to jog your memory. At Turner Pre-K, we have 235 kiddos there in pre-K. 63 of those are in our bilingual pre-K, and about 60 of them are in our 3- and 4-year-olds ECSC special education program. Northside, we house about 35 gen ed pre-K. Marvin has about 46. And Jimmy Ray right now has a wonderful collab classroom. That's a mix of general education and special education kiddos out there. We have 4 pre-K classrooms out at Jimmy Ray, so only one of them is currently being utilized. They were fully furnished when the building was built, and so we don't have any furniture needs. We also, when we adopted our pre-K curriculum recently, we did buy additional classroom sets in anticipation of adding more sections pre-K, so we don't have any cost to incur there. We would be looking to add 2 classrooms out at Jimmy Ray Elementary of this tuition-based pre-K. It would be on a lottery basis, so just like how our other campuses work with lottery, for example, Marvin and Wildman, same type situation. Hopefully we could get lots and lots of applicants and have a need for a lottery. So it's pretty much cost neutral for us to do this. 2 certified teachers, 2 paraprofessionals at a cost of about $225,000 to the district. We'd have a few costs, about $5,000 per classroom as far as just adding some manipulatives, some of just the classroom needs for a pre-K classroom. That tuition, when we did our research, it's somewhere around $5,500. We'd be very competitive, if not a little low. We don't have any additional cost involved like that, like an enrollment fee or a supply fee that a lot of other places tack on. So if we fill all of those seats up, we would be at about $242,000. And so it's pretty cost neutral for the district. No guarantee we'll fill all of those seats, but of course if we only have 22, then we only hire 1 teacher and 1 paraprofessional. Our elementary principals are strongly in favor of this. Some of our strongest kiddos come out of our pre-K program. We do an excellent job with our pre-K kids. So we're all very excited about this, and it is for your consideration tonight.
Ms. Mont, will this be for a full day pre-K?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And our other campuses, are they full day pre-K?
Everything is full day except for our 60 ECSC 3 and 4-year-olds at Turner Pre-K that you see there. Those are the only ones that are half day.
Okay, thank you.
Everybody else is full day.
Okay.
Okay.
What questions can I answer?
Okay, I need a motion to approve action item B as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Timmerman. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Schofield. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. All right, action item C will be consideration with possible action to approve the change order from BTC and to accept the Wildman STEAM Academy project as complete and to authorize the release of project retainage in accordance with Board Policy CV Local. Mr. Calden.
Thanks, sir. The board will finally get to come with some good news for you. Wildman is complete. Wildman is done. Wildman, with its amended timeline, was on time and under budget, as Mr. Mott told you earlier. Tonight, we are asking for your approval on a change order from BTC. That change order actually reduces the guaranteed maximum price down to the final cost of the building. We're also asking for you, in accordance with Board Policy CV Local, to accept that project as complete. We're in the building. We're having school. Mr. Mott reported earlier that the punch list, that BTC has completed their punch list. And then we're also asking for your authorization to release retainage when we receive the draw from BTC for that final payment to the contractors. So with that, we ask for your approval of this item tonight.
Any questions for Mr. Calden? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item D as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. McCutcheon. Who was the second down here? Mr. Cooper? Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries 7-0. And our next item will be our comments from individual board members.
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry, I skipped right over D, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, action item D, consideration of possible action to approve the guaranteed maximum price for the remaining scope of Waxahachie Creek High School construction project from Poe Construction at a cost not to exceed $229,146,852. That's probably a pretty important one.
I think so. And, you know, I was getting a complex, like you were ready for me to be done talking today. Board, at your dais seat, we have a report from Pogue on the guaranteed maximum price 4 summary. So our total budget, construction-wise, on this project at Waxahachie Creek was $290 million. You've approved the first 3 GMPs, and that left us with the remaining scope of the building. So we tackled the stuff that we need early on, or things that have long lead times that we need to make sure are critical in here. But GMP 4 is the balance of the work, is the rest of the building and all the other stuff that goes in it. That total came out to $229,146,852. Board also want to report to you that within the first 3 GMPs, we had 46 bidders, which sounds like a really good number for those 3 categories. For GMP 4, we had 256 bidders, the remaining trades and scope of the building, so a grand total of 302 bidders on that project. That's a really phenomenal number. It goes to show the work that's going on in Waxahachie. Our subs know that we're growing, they're interested in our projects, but it also helps to make sure that the price that we're paying is very competitive. And so we feel really good about where we are right now. A little bit of truth and honesty with you. Oh, I skipped one. Ellis County, we did have 7 respondents from Ellis County who responded to any of the 4 of the GMP bids. So over the entire course and scope of the project, we did have 7 respondents from Ellis County. On the back of this, board, you will see every respondent for GMP number 4, so that you can thumb through at your leisure, and maybe even with a magnifying glass, because it's not the biggest print in the world. But in case you were curious as to who was responding to the bids or to those categories, you're welcome to review. Board, I will also tell you that bid day went very well in GMP 4 for the remaining scope, so well that we actually came in a little bit under budget, and we added an allowance and contingency. So we actually put a little bit of money aside on the project, knowing that it's a 30-month construction, to make sure that for cost escalation, we had a little bit of savings there, a little bit of cushion there for anything that may happen over the next 30 months. So felt like we were being really responsible and really setting ourselves up for a position to succeed. So we do ask your approval tonight on the final Phase 4 GMP of $229,146,852.
Any questions for Mr. Calden? It's an awful big number. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve action item D as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Timmerman,
Second.
second by Mr. McCutcheon. Any other discussion?
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
I would like to note that I'm going to abstain from voting on this matter due to potential conflict of interest doing having ownership on neighboring property.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Pitts. Okay, at this time, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say nay. Motion carries 6-0 with 1 abstention. All right.
Thank you, Board.
Yes, sir.
Board, since you just approved that, I'm going to give you your own personal hard hat. Anytime you happen to be in the area and would like to come in, you're more than welcome to.
Oh. Wow.
Thanks, sir.
I'm gonna go check out Finley. Thank you. Wow.
Board, this is the time for our comment section from any individual board member that would like to address the public.
No one should ever doubt, after seeing all these kids that came in here today, that our district is just the best. Because you see, we had kids go to state, we have kids that place first, we have kids excited about learning, excited about being challenged, and that is all because of the wonderful staff that we have and all of our supportive parents. So never doubt that we are in a great place.
And all I want to say to you tonight is I hope everybody has a wonderful spring break, and please be safe, and we'll see you, what's the comeback date?
March 17th.
March
17th.
March 17th. So everybody have a wonderful spring break. Thank you.
Yes, I wanted to say the same. Thanks for all you're doing, and enjoy your spring break.
Anyone else? Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Kriegel, is there a second? Second by Mr. Pitts. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much.